Okay, this is part 10 of Champion, June. 51.5 hours since my final conversation with Thomas. 15 hours since I last saw Day. 8 hours since the colony's bombardment of Denver's armor came to a lull. We're on the Elector's plane headed to Ross City, Antarctica. I sit across from Andon. Ollie's lying at my feet. The other two Princeps-elects are in an adjacent compartment separated from us by glass. 3 by 6 feet bulletproof Republic seal carved on the side facing me, judging from the edges of the cut. Outside the window, the sky is brilliant blue, and a blanket of clouds pads the bottom of our view. Any minute now, we should feel the plane dip and see the sprawling Antarctican metropolis come into view. I've stayed quiet for most of the trip, listening on as Andon takes a stream of endless calls from Denver about the battle. Only when we're almost over Antarctican waters does he finally fall silent. I watch how the light plays on his features, contouring the young face that holds such world-weary thoughts. What's the history between us and Antarctica? I ask after a while. What I really want to say is, do you think they'll help us? But that question is just silly small talk, impossible to answer and thus pointless to ask. Andon looks away from the window and fixes his bright green eyes on me. Antarctica gives us aid. We've taken international aid from them for decades. Our own economy isn't strong enough to stand on its own. It still unsettles me that the nation I once believed so powerful is in reality struggling for survival. And what is our relationship with them now? Andon keeps his gaze steadily on me. I can see the tension in his eyes, but his face remains composed. Antarctica has promised to double their aid if we can draft a treaty that can get the colonies talking with us again, and they threaten to have their aid if we don't have a treaty by the end of this year. He pauses. So we're visiting them not just to ask for help, but to try to persuade them not to withhold their aid. We have to explain why everything has fallen apart. I swallow. Why Antarctica? They have a long rivalry with Africa. Andon replies. If anyone with power will help us win a war against the colonies and Africa, it'll be them. He leans forward and rests his elbows on his knees. His gloved hands are a foot away from my legs. We'll see what happens. We owe them a lot of money, and they haven't been happy with us for the past few years. Has the president ever met you in person? Sometimes I visited with my father, Andon replies. He offers me a crooked smile that sends unexpected flutters through my stomach. He was a charmer during our meetings. Do you think I have a chance? I smile back. I can sense the double meaning in his question. He's not just talking about Antarctica. You're charismatic, if that's what you're asking, I decide to say. Andon laughs a little. The sound warms me. He looks away and lowers his eyes. I haven't been very successful at charming anyone lately, he murmurs. The plane dips. I turn my attention to my window and take a deep breath, fighting down the pink rising on my cheeks. The clouds grow nearer as we descend, and soon we are engulfed in swirling gray mist. After a few minutes, we emerge from their underbelly to see a massive stretch of land covered in a dense layer of high-rises that come in a wild assortment of bright colors. I second my breath at the sight. One look is all I need to confirm just how much of a technological and wealth gap there is between the Republic and Antarctica. A thin, transparent dome stretches across the city, but we pass right through it as easily as we slice through the clouds. Each building appears to have the ability to change colors on a whim. Two have already shifted from a pastel green to a deep blue, and one changes from gold to white. And each building looks brand new, polished and flawless in a way that very few Republic buildings are. Enormous, elegant bridges connect many of the towering skyscrapers, brilliantly white under the sun, each one linking one's building's floor to its adjacent building and forming a honeycomb-like web of ivory. The uppermost bridges have round platforms in their centers. When I look closer, I see what seem like aircraft parked on the platforms. Another oddity. All of the high-rises have enormous silver holograms of numbers floating over their roofs, each ranging between 0 and 30,000. I frown. Are they being beamed from a light at each rooftop? Perhaps they signify the population living in each skyscraper. Although, if that were the case, 30,000 seems like a relatively low ceiling given the size of each building. Our pilot's voice rings out over the intercom to inform us of our landing. As the candy-colored buildings gradually fill our entire view, we zero in on one of the bridge platforms. Down below, I see people hurrying to prepare for our jet's landing. When we're finally hovering over the platform, an abrupt jolt jerks all of us sideways in our seats. Ollie lifts his head and growls. We're magnetically docked now, Andon tells me when he sees my startled expression. From here on out, our pilot doesn't need to do a thing. The platform itself will pull us down for the landing. We touch down so smoothly that I don't feel a thing, as if we stepped out of the plane along with our entourage of senators and guards. I'm shocked first by how nice the temperature is outside. A cool breeze, the warmth of the sun. Aren't we at the bottom of the earth? 72 degrees is my assumption. Southwest wind, a breeze surprisingly light considering how high up from the ground level we are. Then I remember the thin, substance-less dome as we pass through. It might be a way the Antarcticans control the climate in their cities. Secondly, I'm shocked to see us immediately ushered into a plastic tent by a team of people in white biohazard suits and gas masks. The news of the colony's plague must have spread here. One of them quickly inspects my eyes, nose, mouth, and ears, and then runs a bright green light across my entire body. I wait in tense silence as the person, male or female, I can't be sure, analyzes the reading of a handheld device. From the corner of my eye, I can see Andon undergoing the same tests. Being the Republic's elector does not apparently exempt one from being possibly contaminated with plague. It takes a good 10 minutes before we are all cleared for entry and led out from under the tarp. Andon greets 3 Antarctican people, each dressed respectively in a green, black, or blue suit, cut in an unfamiliar style, waiting for us on the landing bridge with a few guards. I hope your flight went well, one of them says as Mariana Surge and I approach. She greets us in English, but her accent is thick and lush. If you prefer, we can send you home in one of our own jets. The Republic is hardly perfect, that much I've known for a long time, and certainly ever since I met Day. But the Antarcticans' women's words are so arrogant that I feel myself bristle. Apparently our Republic jets aren't good enough for them. I look at Andon to see what his reaction will be, but he simply bows his head and offers a beautiful smile to the woman. Gracias, Lady Medina. You are always so gracious, he replies. I'm very grateful for your offer, but I certainly don't want to impose. We'll make do. I can't help admiring Andon. Every day I see new evidence of the burdens he shoulders. After some argument, I reluctantly let one of the guards take Ollie away to the hotel quarters where I'll be staying. Then we all fall into a quiet procession as the Antarcticans lead us off the platform and along the bridge toward the connecting building. Colored scarlet, although I'm not sure if it's in honor of our landing. I make a point of walking close to the bridge edge so that I can look down at the city. For once, it takes me a while to count the floors. Based on the bridges branching out from every floor, this building has over 300 floors, approximately 327, although eventually I look away to shake off a sense of vertigo. Sunlight bathes the uppermost floors, but the lower floors are also brightly illuminated. They must be simulating sunlight for those walking at ground level. I watch Andon and Lady Medina chat and laugh as if they are old friends. Andon falls so neatly into it that I can't tell whether he genuinely likes this woman or he is simply playing the role of an agreeable politician. Apparently our late elector had at least trained his son well enough in international relations. The building's bridge entrance, an archway framed with intricately carved swirls, slides open to greet us. We halt in a lavishly decorated lobby, thick ivory carpet that to my fascination bursts with swirls of color wherever I put my feet down, rows of potted palms, a curved glass wall displaying bright ads, and what seem like interactive stations for things I don't understand. As we walk, the Antarcticans hand each of us a thin pair of glasses. Andon and many of the senators immediately put them on as if they're used to this ritual, but the Antarcticans explain the glasses anyway. I wonder whether they know who I am or whether they care. They certainly notice my puzzlement at the glasses. Keep these on for the duration of your visit, Lady Medina tells us with her rich accent, although I know her words are directed at me. They will help you see Ross City as it really is. Intrigued, I put the glasses on. I blink in surprise. The first thing I feel is a subtle tickle in my ears, and the first thing I see are these small glowing numbers hovering over the heads of each of the Antarcticans. Lady Medina has 28,627, level 29, while her 2 companions, who have yet who have yet to utter a sound, respectively, have 8,819, level 11, and 11,201, level 13. When I look around the lobby, I notice all sorts of virtual numbers and words. The green bulbous plant in the corner has water +1 hovering over it, while clean +1 floats above a dark half-circle side table. In the corner of my glasses, I see tiny glowing words. June-Iparus, Princeps-elect 3, Republic of America, level 1, September 22nd, 2132. Daily score 0, cumulative score 0. We've started walking again. None of the others seem particularly concerned about the onslaught of virtual text and numbers layered over the real world, so I'm left to my own intuition. Although the Antarcticans aren't wearing glasses, their eyes occasionally flicker to virtual things in the world in a way that makes me wonder whether they have something embedded in their eyes or perhaps in their brains that permanently stimulates all of these virtual things for them. One of Lady Medina's two companions, a broad-shouldered, white-haired man with very dark eyes and golden-brown skin, walks slower than the others. Eventually, he reaches me near the end of the procession and falls into step beside me. I tense up at his presence. When he speaks, though, his voice is low and kind. Miss June-Iparus? Yes, sir, I reply, bowing my head respectfully in the way Andon had done. To my surprise, I see the numbers in the corner of my glasses change. September 22nd, 2132. Daily score 1. Cumulative score 1. My mind spins. Somehow the glasses must have recorded my bowing action and added a point to this Antarctican scoring system, which means bowing is equal to 1 point. This is also when I realized something else. When the white-haired man spoke, I heard absolutely no accent. He's now speaking perfect English. I glance over to Lady Medina, and when I catch hints of what she's saying to Andon, I notice that her English now sounds impeccable too. The tickle I'd felt in my ears when I put on the glasses, maybe it's acting as some sort of language translation device, allowing the Antarcticans to revert to their native language while still communicating with us without missing a beat. The white-haired man now leans over to me and whispers, I am Guardian Moroki, one of Lady Medina's newer bodyguards. She has assigned me to be your guide, Miss Iparus, as it seems you are a stranger to our city. It's quite different from your republic, isn't it? Unlike Lady Medina, the way Guardsman Moroki speaks has no condescension in it at all, and his question doesn't rub me the wrong way. Thank you, sir, I reply gratefully. And yes, I have to admit that these virtual numbers I see all over the place are strange to me. I don't quite understand it. He smiles and scratches at the white scruff on his chin. Life in Ross City is a game, and we are all its players. Native Antarcticans don't need glasses like you visitors do. All of us have chips embedded near our temples once we turn 13. It's a piece of software that assigns you points to everything around us. He gestures towards the plants. Do you see the words water +1 hovering over that plant? I nod. If you decide to water that plant, for example, you would receive 1 point for doing so. Almost every positive action you make in Ross City will earn you achievement points, while negative actions subtract points. As you accumulate points, you gain levels. Right now, you are at level 1. He pauses to point at the virtual number floating over his head. I am at level 13. What's the point of reaching levels? I ask as we leave the hall and step into an elevator. Does it determine your status in the city? Does it keep your civilizations in line? Guardsman Moroki nods. You'll see. We step out of the elevator and head out onto another bridge. This time it's covered with an arched glass roof that connects this building to another. As we walk, I begin to see what Guardsman Moroki is talking about. The new building we enter looks like an enormous academy, and as we peer through glass panels into classrooms lined with rows of what must be students, I notice that all of them have their own point scores and levels hovering over their heads. At the front of the room, a giant glass screen displays a series of math questions, each with a glowing point score over them. Calculus Semester 2. Question 1, 6 points. Question 2, 12 points. And so on. At one point, I see one of the students attempt to lean over and cheat from a neighbor. The point score over his head flashes red, and a second later, the number decreases by 5. Cheating, minus 5 points. 1,642. Level 3. The student freezes, then quickly returns to looking at his own exam. Guardsman Moroki smiles when he sees me analyzing the situation. Your level means everything in Ross City. The higher your level, the more money you make, the better jobs you can apply for, and the more respected you are. Our highest scorers are widely admired and quite famous. He points towards the back of the cheating student. As you can see, our citizens are so engrossed in this game of life that most of them know better than to do things that will decrease their scores. We have very little crime in Ross City as a result. Fascinating, I murmur, my eyes still glued to the classroom even as we reach the end of the hallway and head out onto another bridge. After a while, a new message pops up in the corner of my glasses. Walked 1,000 meters, plus 2 points. Daily score 3. Cumulative score 3. To my surprise, seeing the numbers go up gives me a brief thrill of accomplishment. I turn to Guardsman Moroki. I can understand how this leveling system is good motivation for your citizens. Brilliant. I don't say my next thought aloud, but secretly I wonder, how do they distinguish between good and bad actions? Who decides that? What happens when someone speaks out against the government? Does her score go up or down? I marvel at the technology available here. It really makes clear for the first time exactly how far behind the Republic is. Have things always been so unequal? Were we ever the leaders? We eventually settle inside a building with a large semicircular chamber used for political meetings. The discussion room, Lady Medina calls it. It's lined with flags from countries around the world. In the chamber center is a long mahogany wood table, and now the Antarctican delegates sit on one side while we sit on the other. Two more delegates who are at similar levels as Lady Medina join us as we begin our talks, but it's a third delegate who catches my attention. He's in his mid-40s with bronze hair and dark skin and a well-trimmed beard. The text hovering over his head reads Level 202. President I carry, Lady Medina says as she introduces him to us. Anton and the other senators bow their heads respectfully. I do the same. Although I don't dare turn my eyes away from the discussion, I can see the Republic's flag in my peripheral vision. With my glasses, I see the virtual text, the Republic of America. Above it, in glowing letters. Right next to it is the colony's flag with its black and gray stripes and the bright gold bird in its center. Some of the other countries' flags have the word ally hovering under their names, but we don't. From the beginning, our discussion is tense. It seems like your father's plans have backfired against you, the president tells Andon. He leans stiffly forward. The United Nations is, of course, concerned that Africa has already given aid to the colonies. The colonies decline an invitation to talk with us. Andon sighs. Our scientists are hard at work on a cure, he continues. I notice he doesn't mention Day's brother in all this and Day's lack of cooperation. But the colony's forces are overwhelming with Africa's money and military supporting them. We need to push them back or we risk being overrun within the month. The virus could spread to us all as well. You speak with passion, the president interrupts, and I have no doubt that you're doing great things as the Republic's new leader. But a situation like this, the virus must first be contained, and I've heard the colonies have already breached your borders. The president's honey-gold eyes are piercingly bright. When Serge tries to speak up, he silences him immediately, never taking his eyes off Andon. Let your elector respond, he says. Serge falls back into sullen silence, but not before I catch a smug look pass between the senators. My temper rises. They, the senator, the Antarctican president, even Andon's own princeps-elect, are all taunting Andon in their own subtle ways, interrupting him, emphasizing his age. I look at Andon, quietly willing him to stand up for himself. Marina nods once at him. Sir, she says. I'm relieved when Andon first shoots a disapproving look at Serge, then lifts his chin and calmly replies, Yes, we've managed to hold them off for now, but they are right at the outskirts of our capital. The president leans forward and rests his elbows on the table. So there's a possibility that this virus has already crossed into your territory. Yes, Andon replies. The president is silent for a moment. Finally, he says, What exactly do you want? We need military support, Andon replies. Your army is the best in the world. Help us secure our borders. But most of all, help us find a cure. They've warned us that a cure is the only way they'll retreat, and we need time to make that happen. The president tightens his lips and shakes his head once. No military support, money, or supplies. I'm afraid you're far too indebted to us for that. I can offer my scientists to help you find a cure for the disease, but I will not send my troops into an area infected with disease. It's too dangerous. When he sees the look on Andon's face, his eyes harden. Please keep us updated, as I hope as much as you do to see a resolution for this. I apologize that we can't be of any more help to you, Elector. Andon leans on the table and laces his fingers together. What can I do to persuade you to help us, Mr. President? He says. The president sits back in his chair and regards Andon for a moment with a thoughtful look. It chills me. He's been waiting for Andon to say this. You're going to have to offer me something worth my while, he finally says. Something your father never offered. And what's that? Land. My heart twists painfully at those words. Giving up land. In order to save our country, we'll have to sell ourselves to another nation. Something about it feels as violating as selling our own bodies. Giving up on your child to a stranger. Tearing away a piece of our home. I look at Andon, trying to decipher the emotions behind his composed exterior. Andon stares at him for a long moment. Is he thinking about what his father would say in a situation like this? Is he wondering whether he's as good a leader to his people? Finally, Andon bows his head, gracefully, even in humility. I'm open to discussion, he says quietly. The president nods once. I can see the small smile at the corners of his lips. Then we'll discuss, he replies. If you find a cure to this virus, and if we agree to the land, then I promise you military support. Until then, the world will have to deal with this, as we do with any pandemic. And what do you mean by that, sir? Andon asks. We will need to seal your ports and borders, as well as the colonies. Other nations will need to be notified. I'm sure you understand. Andon's silent. I hope the president doesn't see the stricken look on my face. The entire republic is going to be quarantined.